Hey everybody, it's Alex or RCG Blade. Welcome back to the channel. And I'm coming at you with a very impromptu video today. If you're new to the channel, you'll probably realize that I'm into comics. I'm into, Marvel. I don't think I've really spoken about DC a whole lot. I am primarily into Marvel over DC, but I still do enjoy DC. If you've been around for a while, then you are probably well aware that I'm also heavily into Godzilla. I'm into big monsters in general. I think kaiju are just fun, but Godzilla is one that was always very near and dear to my heart. And so when Marvel announced that they were going to be doing a series of crossover comics featuring the big G himself, well, I knew my wallet was about to get a lot lighter. And no kidding, I mean, with all the variant covers that they've released and the amount of the stories, I think there was 6 one-shots. And then we've also got the Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe series that's coming out. I mean, yeah, this was a lot of comics. And I'll be 100% honest with you, most of them were just pretty covers. A lot of these stories were pretty rough. They went from pretty serviceable, like the Fantastic Four one, the Spider-Man one, and then you had really bad, like the New Avengers one. The New Avengers one was honestly one of the worst comics I think I've ever read in my life. The dialogue was just really awful, and the way it was told was just, I don't know, the word I kept seeing in reviews that resonated with me was it felt like reading a fan fiction. So lo and behold, the final one in this series was going to be Godzilla vs. Thor, and frankly, I didn't have super high hopes for this one. I wasn't exactly familiar with who Jason Aaron was as a writer at the time. I hadn't even really correlated that he was the guy who wrote the recent Absolute Superman series that's been doing pretty good. So I went into this with pretty low expectations, but this comic right here is probably one of my favorite comics of all time now. I'd love to explain why, so let's get into it. Before I get ahead of myself, let's establish a bit of background here. As you heard me mention in the intro, Godzilla vs. Thor was one of 6 different one-shot Godzilla crossovers released over the past few months. The other 5 stories were Godzilla vs. the Fantastic Four, a campy story that takes place in the 60s and includes Ghidorah as the Herald of Galactus, Godzilla vs. the Hulk, a 70s brawl featuring Godzilla foe Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Spider-Man, an 80s era symbiote smackdown, Godzilla vs. the X-Men, a 90s inspired race against the clock and the Sentinels, and Godzilla vs. the Avengers, featuring Godzilla's look from the 1999 film Godzilla 2000. I know, the name doesn't make sense, but that was the English release. Each comic had plenty of gorgeous covers, including both a complete foil set and a complete retro boxing inspired set. But enough of the context surrounding the other crossovers. Let's get into what made this one so special. Godzilla vs. Thor, released on July 2nd, 2025, happens to be a sequel to a film called GMK, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, from 2001. GMK stands for Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, 3 monsters who feature in the film, though not in the comic itself. GMK stands out amongst Godzilla films thanks in part to the way it flips the typical Godzilla backstory. In GMK, Godzilla is a supernatural manifestation of the souls of the people killed by Japan during the Second World War. At the end of the film, although defeated, we see Godzilla's heart continue to beat, implying his inevitable return, which brings us to the very beginning of Godzilla vs. Thor number 1. The comic opens in a Japanese forest, where members of the Hand, a murderous death cult, worship their deity, a world-ending monster known only as the Beast. In an attempt to bring about their twisted prophecy, the cult sacrifices a group of serial killers, using their blood to help resurrect Godzilla, using his still-beating heart from the end of GMK. A few days after the sacrifice, and we cut to Godzilla rampaging through Tokyo, Japan, where he kills thousands, much to the joy of the members of the Hand, who watch the devastation with glee, until, that is, Thor drops in to put an end to Godzilla's destruction. Now, locked into a fight to the death, Godzilla and Thor trade blows for hours, hurled far up into the clouds, raining ash and fire on all of those below. That is, until Thor manages to freeze Godzilla using a portal to Jotunheim, the realm of the Frost Giants. Not yet ready to give up on their prophecy, the Hand manages to acquire a sliver of All Black, the Necro Sword formerly owned by Null and Gore the God Butcher. Using the piece of the mighty blade, they imbue Godzilla with its god-slaying power, and he bursts from the ice as Godzilla the God Butcher. Meanwhile, Thor, headed back to Asgard to celebrate after another successful mission, finds Sif and others dead, as he wonders who could possibly kill the gods of Asgard, until he hears Godzilla call out from Asgard itself. Enraged by Godzilla's blasphemy, Thor spares no hesitation as he immediately launches into Godzilla, swearing to kill the beast even if it means his own death. We spend the next few pages seeing their battle, how Thor holds nothing back, how powerful Godzilla is in its new form, and how destructive their combat against one another is. Thunder and fire raging all around them, the art for this final confrontation is absolutely stunning. Realizing that the only way to kill Godzilla is to kill himself, Thor gives the God Butcher one final blow with all that he has left, powerful enough to annihilate them both, with Thor's final words being, "See you in hell." We end the comic with Thor, now in hell, as Godzilla's warden, bound forever in combat against Godzilla, keeping his destruction contained until the end of time. So after going over all of that stuff, I don't think it should be very hard to understand why I fell in love with this comic so quickly. I mean, to be honest, it's the one out of all of these crossovers that I think really would do a good job of making new Godzilla fans. I think that's kind of the whole point of these crossovers, to expose people to other things that maybe they wouldn't think they'd be interested in at first. But, you know, if you get Godzilla in the context of fighting Thor, the mighty god of thunder, well, maybe someone's going to give it a shot. And maybe they'll find that they actually think Godzilla's pretty damn kick-ass, which, well, I would find myself in that camp. Overall, I would have to say I'm still pretty happy with how this crossover series turned out. And while Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe is not out yet, I've got pretty high hopes for it too. I'm not super familiar with the creative team behind it, but again, I just think the concept of having a character as devastatingly powerful as Godzilla go against a team as righteously optimistic as the Avengers, I mean, come on. Who wouldn't want that? And you've got the X-Men, you've got the Fantastic Four, you've got all these other amazing heroes that are part of the Marvel Universe. The possibilities are endless. So some people might view these crossovers as a kind of cash grab, desperate move, kind of like what's been said a lot with the whole DC collaborating with Marvel thing, but I'm all for it. I think that it can breed a lot of new fans, first and foremost, but it can also help bridge communities together. You know, who knows? Maybe we'll get to see some more cool Godzilla stuff in the Marvel Universe. He was a character before. They lost the rights to him. They had to change his name. But, you know, back in the 70s, he was a Marvel character. So who knows what the future could hold. I'm here for all these crossovers, whether it be Godzilla or Predator and Alien. Bring it on. Let the games begin as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I've been Alex or RCG Blade. Thank you very much for watching my video. And sincerely, you owe it to yourself. Check this comic out. As always, take care. Have a good one. Bye.